If you had asked me 6 months ago how solid my marriage was, I would have said, rock solid, without hesitation. Karen and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. We weren't one of those overly lovey-dovey couples posting selfies online every weekend, but there was an unspoken rhythm between us, a quiet comfort I mistook for permanence. Looking back, maybe that silence wasn't comfort at all. Maybe it was the calm before the storm. The day everything started to unravel was the day we went car shopping. We had just paid off her old Honda Civic, and it was showing its age. I'd been saving up, and with some bonus money coming in from work, we figured it was time. I remember being excited, thinking this would be a fun little adventure together, something normal, even bonding. It was a Saturday morning, warm with the first hints of summer. We drove to a dealership just outside the city, a fancy place with chrome signage and glass walls that made it look more like a tech showroom than a place you bought Toyotas. Karen was dressed casually, jeans and a loose blouse, but I noticed she'd put in more effort than usual. Her makeup was subtle but defined, her hair done up just enough to look like it wasn't done up. I teased her about it. Trying to impress the sales guy? And she laughed, though her laugh felt a bit off. We met him right away. Trent. I remember because his name sounded like it belonged to someone on a reality show. Tall, tanned, overly confident, with that slick charm dealerships love to wrap their brand in. He shook my hand with that overcompensating grip and barely glanced at Karen before launching into his pitch. At first, everything was routine. He asked what kind of car we were looking for, what our budget was, the usual. But I started noticing little things. Karen leaned in a little more than necessary when she asked questions. She laughed at all his jokes, even the dumb ones. And Trent? He stopped talking to me and started directing everything toward her. I brushed it off. I've always been the laid-back type. But it kept happening. By the time we got to the third car, I was basically a background character in my own life. It wasn't until Trent suggested a test drive that things got weird. "Why don't you two take her for a spin?" I offered, gesturing toward the car. Trent smiled. "Actually, I usually go along, especially for first-timers. Liability and all." Karen jumped at the idea before I could even respond. "Sure. That's fine. It's better that way, right?" Something in her voice made my stomach twist. I watched them pull out of the lot, her in the passenger seat, Trent behind the wheel, music thumping through the open windows. I stood there like an idiot, watching the dust settle behind them. They were gone for over 30 minutes. The manager eventually came by, asking if I needed help. I smiled tightly and said I was just waiting for the test drive to finish. He frowned. "It's just a Corolla, not a cross-country trip," he joked. When they returned, Karen looked flushed. Her hair was a bit tousled, and she kept touching her lips like she just reapplied lipstick, only she hadn't. Trent gave me that same shark smile and tossed me the keys like I was some intern. "Drives great," Karen said, almost too brightly. "Really smooth." "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "Smooth ride?" She nodded, her eyes darting to Trent and back to me. We left shortly after, and the whole drive home was filled with silence that didn't feel companionable. She stared out the window. I stared at her. I didn't ask. Not then. But the pit in my stomach grew into something I couldn't ignore. The real confirmation didn't come until a week later. I found her phone left unlocked on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I know what you're thinking. Trust, privacy, all that, but something had already broken inside me. I wasn't snooping. I was searching for what I already knew. There it was. A text thread with Trent. "That little test drive was the highlight of my week. You looked incredible in that passenger seat. You were incredible behind the wheel." I sat there, The words swimming in front of me, my breath shallow. I scrolled further. There were no nudes or sexting, not yet, but there were plans. Flirtation. Implications. That's when I realized it hadn't just been a one-off. It had been a spark, and they were fanning it into something more. And I had handed her the keys. After I found those messages, I didn't confront her right away. I needed more than a hunch and a couple of flirty texts. I needed clarity. Not for her, for me. Because the part that stung most wasn't that she may have crossed a line, but that she never even looked back to see if I was following. Like I was a checkpoint she'd already passed. So I played it cool. I smiled through dinners. I asked about her day. I made her coffee the way she liked it, with just the right amount of cream. And all the while I watched. She started working later. A few nights a week, she claimed she was meeting a friend or doing errands after work. She'd leave dressed in jeans and flats, but come back in heels and lipstick. She had this habit of humming to herself in the bathroom, something she hadn't done in years. I'd lay in bed, listening to her, wondering who she had been humming for earlier. 2 weeks passed. I knew enough by then. She said she had to stop by the dealership to drop off some paperwork for the financing deal. I offered to come along. We can grab dinner after. But she hesitated, then smiled. Actually, it'll be quick. Let's do dinner tomorrow instead. I waited 15 minutes after she left before getting in my car. I parked across the street from the dealership, angled just enough so I could see the side lot. It was dusk, the sun sliding behind the roofline. I didn't have to wait long. I saw her car pull in, not in front, where customers go, but behind the building. The service lot. She got out and walked around to the back entrance. Less than 5 minutes later, Trent stepped out. No clipboard, no forms. Just him, arms crossed, that same cocky swagger. He said something. She laughed and leaned in. And then they kissed. It wasn't just a kiss. It was the kind that makes you forget the world has corners. The kind you give someone you've already undressed 100 times in your mind. I could have driven off then. Should have. But I stayed. And when they walked back inside, I followed. I told myself I just needed confirmation. But truthfully, I wanted to see her face. I wanted to see if she'd flinch when she realized the world she was building with him was paper thin. The dealership was mostly dark, except for a small light in an office near the back. I crept through the side entrance, unlocked, stupidly, and moved down the hallway. Their voices were muffled, but I could hear laughter, then a low moan. I stepped to the door. The blinds were down, but one corner had come loose. And there she was. Not stripped down, not yet. But sitting on his desk, her blouse undone just enough. His hand was on her thigh, her fingers in his hair. Her head tilted back, that same hum in her throat. I don't know how long I stood there. Time felt like it had paused just long enough to gut me clean. I left without making a sound. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't rage or cry or pack a bag. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping cold coffee and watching the front door. When she walked in past midnight, I didn't say a word. She blinked at me, startled. "You're up?" I nodded. "Couldn't sleep." She hesitated. Her purse dangled from her arm. Her blouse looked crumpled. Lipstick faded. "I'm sorry I was so late. I got caught up helping." "Don't lie," I said quietly. Not angry. Just done. "Not tonight." She froze. "I followed you," I added, still calm. "Saw you with him." She let the silence stretch until it felt like it would snap. Then she walked slowly to the chair across from me and sat down. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said finally, her voice small. I looked at her. "But you let it." She nodded, eyes shiny now. "I don't even know what I'm doing anymore." With him, I felt noticed, desired. And with me? I asked. Her voice cracked. Safe. Loved. But maybe that wasn't enough. There it was. The answer I wasn't ready for, but knew was coming. I leaned back in my chair. So what now? You want both? Trade off excitement and comfort depending on the day? No, she whispered. I know I've ruined it. I didn't know how to come back from it once it started. I stood up, suddenly tired. You don't come back from that, Karen. You move forward, with or without me. I didn't pack a bag that night. Didn't slam the door or make a scene. I just went to the spare room, locked the door behind me, and laid down on the bed we hadn't shared in weeks. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But something inside me shifted. The next morning, I made her coffee one last time. Set it down on the table, next to a sealed envelope, the kind you use for paperwork that makes endings official. Then I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back.